This week we are going to continue with a video where I discuss lessons that I learned when I watched the conversation between Alex Hormozi and Tony Robbins. If you haven't watched the video from last week, I think it's still useful for you to watch it. I shared some lessons that I'm not going to share in this video. However, this video is meant as a continuation because after the fact I sit down and I reflected on what I've noticed and I extracted some additional lessons that I want to share with you. First, sometimes you can see people's struggles only if you pay attention to what it's not being said by reading between the lines and noticing what they might be trying to hide from the world. Alex kind of gives this vibe that he is kind of struggling, which, you know, to his credit, he is already sharing this. He is saying like, look, I'm struggling with this. He mentioned it multiple times. But you could see his struggle also in his eyes. You could see by the way he talks, by the way he is, sometimes he feels uncomfortable a little bit. He doesn't really feel like he is in his element. And if you pay attention to that, it's almost like you extract or let away the words and you pay attention to his mannerism, you could see the same message. But you could also see something that he is not saying. He disconnected from the feeling. If he couldn't achieve happiness, he said, you know what, fuck happiness. And with that, he basically concluded that, you know what, if I cannot feel happy, I would rather not feel. And that's why he is rather successful, makes good decisions, makes good calls in business, but at the same time, he doesn't know how to connect and disconnect. He doesn't know how to switch from business Alex to personal Alex. He doesn't know how to switch between anabolical Alex and analytical Alex. Because he is mostly in his head. Most of the time he is in his, analytical Alex. Lesson number 2. The real problem is not pain or even suffering. It's not feeling anything at all. And an even bigger problem is that by default we avoid pain, we avoid feeling, and therefore we avoid living. You see, in that video he shares that, well, he is kind of struggling. But what I did not notice is that he doesn't really feel his struggle because he shares the idea that, you know what, I accept that. I'm okay with it. If I cannot be happy, at least I'm going to be useful, and at least everyone else is going to get something out of it. This is what he shares, right? Well, in the process of that, he is no longer feeling his struggle. He is kind of aware of it, but he is not feeling his struggle. So what I concluded in that video is that actually the worst thing that can happen is not really the pain or the suffering, because suffering is sustained pain over a long period of time over the same issue, right? That creates the suffering, is repetitive pain. But what is even worse than pain is not feeling anything at all. And I feel like that's really something that was not really addressed in that video. Lesson number 3. Nobody is confident in all situations and contexts. Alex showed visible signs of nervousness, allowing his humanity to shine through. Well, you see, when people watch Alex Hormozi's videos, he is always confident. He talks about business, he talks about money and mindset, and he looks like he is a confident person. But people need to understand that there are no confident people. When you talk about someone or refer to someone and say, oh, this person is confident, that means you are mainly watching them in a context where they feel competent and therefore they come across as confident. But if you remove them from that context and you place them in a context where they don't feel so confident, well, that is also going to show. If you watch that video, the one with Alex and Tony, you're going to see that Alex is, he's not really like panicking, but he is a bit, you can see he is uncomfortable. In fact, many people pointed to the same vibe in the comments. Watch the comments, read the comments, and you're going to see exactly what I mean. So that means Alex, in his context where he is competent in business and making money, is very confident. He looks like a confident person, and that's why people say, well, he comes across as very confident. But he removed or placed in a different situation is a different Alex, and that's important to understand because people ask, how do I become confident? And I'm saying like, well, it's a bit more complex than that. You don't really become confident in all spaces, in all contexts. You're just like a confident person, doesn't matter what. Yes, there is, I guess, like a general sense of confidence that if you achieve if you become competent and therefore confident in a certain space in your life, that definitely might, affect other areas, and you might become confident also in other areas, right? So let's say that you achieve fitness, you become more fit, you look good, and now you are more confident around women and in business, and there are other areas that get some of that confidence. But again, confidence is not absolute. It's not like it is or it's not. It's not a boolean. It's not like a yes or no for each person, but it's more like this person is very confident and comes across as confident in a certain space or context. Also, based on the same idea, nobody is ambitious in all aspects of life. Alex is very ambitious in business, but appears more settled when it comes to personal goals like joy and fulfillment. You are going to see, if you watch that video, he oftentimes mentioned like, well, I'm okay with that. Like if I cannot achieve happiness, at least I settle for being useful. And at one point, even Tony kind of calls him out. It's like, wait, like, would you be okay with anything mediocre in your business? And Alex is like, oh, no, of course. Like, yeah. Where Tony is pointing to the fact that, look, you are very ambitious when it comes to your business. You do not accept mediocrity. You are known for setting excellence standards. But however, when it comes to your fulfillment, when it comes to you enjoying the very fruits of your work, you kind of settle for less. And that means that, again, nobody is ambitious in general. Like, oh, this person is very ambitious. No, just like confidence, ambition is kind of like it's particularized, it's compartmentalized, compartment or whatever. The word, I don't know how to pronounce it, but that it's in different areas. In different areas, we are more ambitious, we are more confident. In other areas, not so much. Lesson number 5. Designing your life intentionally, not just following paths validated by external rewards, is paramount. If you skip this inner work, you will spend your later years rebuilding what you constructed on the wrong foundation. There is no running away from ourselves or from the unique challenges that God puts in front of us. While I talk about this in the video last week, where I believe that in Alex's journey, in his hero journey, things come back full circle. He started from a place of like, I'm pushed by anger to achieve something, and then he went and achieved a lot, and in the process of that he disconnected from the feeling. But then eventually you don't run away from yourself, you don't run away from your problems, and eventually, even if with all the money in the world and all success in the world and appreciation and accolades, he still struggled with that, because you cannot really escape, you cannot really run away from yourself. So that means that it's just better, it's just smarter for you to start designing your life from the beginning. Don't listen to people who tell you that, it doesn't matter, just like you're thinking too much. Don't think, just start taking action, and eventually, like life will give you feedback and you will adjust along the way. Like I discussed this point in the last week video, oftentimes this doesn't happen. Again, I shared this example. There are many taxi drivers in their 50s and 60s that started exactly from this idea. I'm like, I just take random action and then I will adjust later, but they don't realize that later becomes never, because they no longer, things happen along the way. They continue to get rewarded, they continue to get validated, and they just like continue, and therefore at one point things happen along the way that will take away their ability to adjust and change course, and then what started as temporary becomes permanent. So that's why when you start, especially in your 20s, it's very smart for you to kind of like sit down and think, strategize, get to know yourself. You have to pay attention to yourself. What do I like? What do I don't like? What do I want? What I don't want? What do I care about? Pay attention to those things, because those will be valuable information and data that will help you to make the right decisions in the right direction. Otherwise, you're just going to you're going to just like start random actions. You're going to get validated in any way, and then you are going to continue, and eventually you might reach, just like Alex, to be successful at something that is not really your design, and therefore now you have like a big issue. Lesson number 6. The irony of achievement is that we set and pursue goals obsessively to improve our lives, but in the process, even if we succeed, we sometimes forget to live and enjoy the fruits of our effort. Well, isn't this almost like begs the question, are you successful if you cannot enjoy your success? You see, people like Alex that really got to achieve great success, but they struggle enjoying it, that makes you wonder, and that really makes you design and start things in a way that, look, it's not just like the end goal, it's not just money, it's not just to be successful financially, but to also be able to enjoy. And if you cannot have both, maybe you are choosing the wrong thing. And that's very important. In our day and age, I see like a lot of people in their 20s, they just chase money. And they chase money at the cost of anything. And they do not see, they don't watch Alex like I did with Tony Robbins to study that video and realize, wait, I want to become like Alex. I'm following Alex, and I'm following everything he says to the letter, but I don't realize that if I do, I will one day potentially, although I might be wealthy and rich and financially successful, I might be struggling with the same problem, which is not an easy problem to solve down the road, because now you want to enjoy something that by definition you did not design, you did not set in order for that to be enjoyable. And therefore now you have like a chicken and egg problem, and again, not very easy to solve. And on that note, the lesson number 7 is this: be careful with jobs and careers that require you to disconnect from your feelings in order to perform. The better you get at them, the more you risk losing yourself. And that's essentially what people call selling your soul. You see, again, when it comes to job, careers, business, and projects, all we see in front is the potential, the money, the success, but we don't see the cost. We don't see how we are paying or what we are paying with. Again, if you watch the video with Alex Hormozi and Tony Robbins, you are going to notice the price of that, because he didn't manage to design, he didn't set to design that in advance. The price of his success was the fact that he no longer can enjoy it. And that's no little price. Don't make the mistake to think like most people, you know what, I would rather be rich and have that problem than anything else. I'm like, not really. Because if you become rich, like financially successful, super wealthy, and then you still haven't filled the void in your soul, you still have a hole in your soul, after success, you're going to become even more depressed than before success. Here is why. Before success, before you achieve financial independence and you make money, you look ahead with hope. You are looking at that potential somewhere in the future and go like, ooh, I will be happy when that happens. Of course, that's a mistake. But at least here at this point, before you achieve the financial success, you have hope. That is driving you. But once you take the action and you are validated and get results and you make money and you get them there and you are still empty, and you are going to feel more hopeless, because now you are no longer can look in the future to go like, when I have that, it was like you already have it and you still feel like shit. And that is a terrible place to be. Don't think that, oh, if I get there, if I have the money, I will figure it out later. You won't. And in fact, it's going to be a worse place. If you want to be happy, doesn't matter how much money you make. Decide to be happy before you make money. Handle yourself to that point where you can be happy. If you're rich, if you're poor, if you go through some sort of sickness, breakup, something happens, develop the skill of happiness, because that is really more valuable than any money on this planet, as you can see if you watch Alex's video. Lesson number 8. You cannot enjoy life outside of work when all you do is just work, because you're not really even trying. intention and prioritization will do 90% of the job in most cases. So therefore, you won't have that which you do not protect or prioritize for. I speak about this in the last week video where even Alex shares something that, comes across as a bit like it's a contradiction. He says, the struggle that I have is that, I work all the time and I find it's a struggle for me to find enjoyment outside of work. Well, if you work all the time, how can you find enjoyment? It's like little contradiction. But the lesson out from that is the fact that you do not get what you don't prioritize. If you don't really protect something to say like, look, I want to protect my free time. I want to protect and I want to create some space. I want to create some time where I can enjoy myself. I don't have to stress myself for work. I can disconnect from everything. If you don't do that, of course, you're not going to even be able, because your mind is not really set for that. You did not prioritize. It's almost like if you don't really care about money, you will never be rich. And even if accidentally you become rich, if you still don't care about money, you will always come back to become poor again, because your mind doesn't think along those terms. It's not something, money in this example, it's not something that you prioritize. It's not something that you protect for. You're just go like, I don't care about that. So therefore all your actions are going to be aligned with that. And therefore, of course, money will not stick to you. Lesson number 9. High performers are often described as machines. Like the man is a machine. But the question is that entirely a good thing? Why do we glorify a culture of obsession? I heard many people, and even some of my clients, especially the young ones, are saying like, you need to become obsessed, right? And I'm like, look, dude, it's like you have to understand there is more than just obsession. I know so many people that were obsessed with whatever they were building, and they got to be successful at the very scale the world look at them as being successful in their field and become legends in their field, but their life was absolute shit. Document, research, find about Bobby Fischer. Bobby Fischer, the chess player, he was obsessed. But search and read, go deep and find about his personal life. Do you want to have that life is the question. Right? Because the problem here is that most of you, especially in your 20s, you look at people who are successful financially and you do not understand how their life is behind the curtains. You just see numbers and you get hypnotized. Like, oh my God, that's amazing. And I'm like, look, learn from people that have went all the way and way beyond everything that most people can achieve in their lifetime. And they got there and they are sharing their lessons just like Alex is sharing. And you can see what that actually is. There is a very big difference. There is a gap between what you think things are like when you're going to be rich and how things are. That's why it's super useful for you to study these people. Don't study only the materials that they put out there in relation to their business, like mindset, you want to be successful, grind this, hustle this, do that, but get the interviews where they share, like things that are more personal. That's when you're going to have like a full-rounded understanding, and that's when you can take a step back and go like, wait, it looks to me that yes, he might be successful doing this and that. However, I'm pretty sure I don't want to achieve, I don't want to have that problem. So therefore, even if I can follow, I can listen, definitely a very competent man, and I can listen to that. I don't have to follow to the letter. My job is to listen. My job is to learn from their mistakes, like learning from the struggles of Alex, right? And then design your life with that in mind. Don't just like follow blindly every motivational video, all of this, because again, you are going to miss out. Lesson number 10. High performance does not pair well with being fully alive and feeling. Performance is reliable, predictable, and efficient. Feeling is random, unexpected, and chaotic. You can't maximize one without sacrificing the other. And I think that Alex is definitely a perfect example, because he maximized one, he maximized disconnecting from the feeling, making like rational decisions, and always being in that mode, always being in his head, and he became wildly successful. However, in the process of that, he kind of like he lost the feeling. As I'm describing this and I'm detailing this in the last week video, how that comes across, how I've noticed that actually he disconnected from the feeling. If you want, go watch that video as well, where I discuss in depth about this. Lesson number 11. Words carry emotional charge. The language you use sets the story you tell about yourself in motion. If you ignore this setup, you won't like how the story ends. You see, we pay like a lot of attention to how other people speak to us, but we don't pay enough attention to how we speak to ourselves. You know, if someone, for example, says something bad towards you, you get very upset. You go like, hey, watch your mouth. But you allow yourself to talk all sorts of bad things about yourself, not knowing this. If other people talk bad, they are talking about themselves. They are describing themselves. They are describing their character. So that really has no implication in your future. But when you talk about yourself, you are literally defining your reality and your future. Self-referential language is reality defining. The way you talk about yourself, the story that you tell, the character that you play in that story dictates your life, your reality, and your future. But nonetheless, people get butthurt about, oh, this person said this to me, like, watch your mouth, don't talk to me like this. But when it's about them talking about themselves, they say often things like, I don't think I can do this. I'm not good enough. I'm not good at this. I suck. And oftentimes we say the worst things about ourselves, not realizing that's the most impactful, like the most damaging, impactful language is self-referential negative language. In other words, negative thinking, negative speaking towards yourself. Don't ever do that. It's good to never speak negatively about other people, but be very careful about when you describe yourself. You see, again, if you watch that video with Alex and Tony, Alex shares that in his 20s, he tried all the positive psychology books, he tried everything, and that didn't work. And he said, you know what, I got to this conclusion, fuck happiness. Fuck happiness means I cannot be happy. He said about himself, so he used self-referential language, like self-talk, I cannot be happy. And as I shared in the last week video, that is exactly the problem, because you lock the key and you lock the door and you throw out the key, and then decades later you ask yourself, why am I not able to enjoy things? It's because you decided by talking to yourself and about yourself what you can have and what you cannot have. So before you say to other people, hey, watch your mouth, make sure that you watch yours first, because you will benefit tremendously. Don't tell other people to watch their mouth, because they are going to reveal their character. So you listen. If someone says something bad towards you or about you, pay attention and listen. They are not going to affect you or your future. And they are going to perfectly describe their character and how they think and they feel towards you. But you also have to pay attention to how you speak to yourself, about yourself. When you meet people and you describe yourself, your job, your life, anything that is referential towards you, be very careful, because that is when you are determining your future. Let's see, lesson number 13. Great coaches like Tony Robbins master the art of gracious guidance. Tony makes astute observations without allowing them to hijack the conversation. This lesson was it was not about Alex, but I've noticed how skilled Tony is. And of course, I'm not at the level, I don't even consider myself at the level to even understand his skill, because he's a legend, he's a living legend. But what I did notice is the fact that sometimes he knew exactly when to push against, was like, oh, well, you say this, but would you accept mediocrity in your business or something? And other times he was just like paying attention, although Alex was saying something obvious. At one point when Alex shares, he said like, well, I work all the time and I struggle with finding enjoyment outside of work. Tony didn't say anything. Although that was like an easy shot. It was like an easy card, like, wait, hold on a second. Like, you work all the time, but you find find it hard to find enjoyment outside of work when there is no outside work time. Like, what's going on? But Tony didn't say anything. He listened. But I know as a coach that was an obvious one. But you see, Tony actually knew exactly when to push against and when to let him actually reveal more. And my God, just watching Tony do this, it was like so useful. Lesson number 14. You can't maximize something you don't have. 0 multiplied by 1,000,000 is still 0. Hopefully my math is right. To maximize joy, you must first find it. This is a lesson that I shared in the last week video where Alex is asking Tony, is like, hey, what could I do to maximize joy? And I'm saying like, look, you don't have the joy. You lost the magic. There is nothing to maximize. If you lost the magic and there is no joy, there is nothing to maximize. And his way, or the way the conclusion of the coaching session was, Alex said like, well, I'm going to help 100,000 men to get to 100,000 in revenue. But that's more numbers, and that will not really help you to find the magic. More numbers, more of the, like, if you cannot really, if you put like a shock, if you put like a shock here, like 12 volts or whatever, and you don't feel anything, increasing the voltage is not going to do anything. You need to first get sensitive again, like for your skin to get sensitive. There is some nerve, some damage here that doesn't really allow you to feel, and then you can feel. But the problem is not more. The problem is, why am I not feeling? Why am I not connected to the impact that I'm having? Lesson number 15, and just before I get lesson number 15, I'm going to just slow down a little bit. I know when I get in this, I'm going to all of this. Like Alex, we can describe our behavior accurately and still not change. That's intellectual awareness without embodiment. It's like knowing smoking is bad but continuing to smoke anyway. There is knowing with like small k, and there is knowing with capital K. One is an illusion and the other one is real. Be aware of the difference. You see, Alex, from what I remember, he knew very well how to describe his struggle, his situation, but at the same time, he was very comfortable in it. He shared at least one time, from what I remember, that he accepts it. He is okay with this. And Tony said like, oh, but you're torn by it, my friend. Like, you are not really accepting it. So like he was talking like, and for this, by the way, I think you have to go watch that video. But he was talking like he is already changing, or he already changed. He is already passed to that moment. But in reality, no, he was just like in kind of like a dream. He was describing his situation without really having the awareness, like, oh, like, wake up, like, ooh, I'm doing this now, like, I need to wake up. Like, for me, imagine I'm not a smoker, but imagine that, you know, I just like fall asleep and I wake up with a cigarette in my hand, right? If I would literally wake up with a cigarette in my hand, knowing that I'm not a smoker, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, you know, like, I don't smoke, and you know, I would be like, where is this coming from? Why is this here? This is not me. But Alex is this, it's kind of like what I share in this video. I think he looks like to be self-hypnotized. He is kind of aware, but not aware. And the lesson here is this: you are not really aware for as long as you continue to engage in a behavior that really doesn't serve you. You're not really aware. You are just lying to yourself, but in reality you don't. I will tell you this: I was a smoker many years ago, and I was a smoker also in high school, and I used to say, yeah, I know smoking is bad, but I would continue to smoke. And then years later when I quit, I realized, oh, there is knowing and there is knowing. Like, when I say I know smoking is bad, it was just like I'm intellectually I'm aware of that, but I'm not aware. I don't have that, hey, it's bad, I need to quit, it's destroying me. I was not really aware of that. And again, that's kind of like the difference between when people talk about their situation and it looks to you that, oh, they understand what they are doing, but in reality they don't. And knowing that difference is very important. That's why self-awareness is paramount, because you might catch yourself by when you actually accept, you tolerate the bad habits in your life, but at the same time, you are kind of like going along with it. Remember, until you decide to change a bad habit, you don't really know what you're doing. Defining your problem accurately is essential to finding a solution. Use the wrong terms and you eliminate your chances to solve anything. To find the solution, you must first understand the problem. You see, I believe that this is what happened when I watched that video. Alex starts the conversation by saying like, look, how do you think about the dichotomy between duty and enjoyment? As in like, there is a dichotomy between duty and enjoyment. Now, he was sharing with this, he was revealing that this is how he thinks about this. But in reality, when you think you know your problem and you start almost like working on the solution, make sure that you understand every variable inside your problem. Like, get to really know your problem well before you attempt any change. Because if you don't really, and you miss some variables, or you misguide something, you go like, well, I think my problem is this, and then you start taking action in that direction, you are going to be more lost, because now you think that you are working on your problem when in reality you are working on a false problem, and you are going to construct false solutions, and you are going to get even further ahead but still confused. The problem is not solved, but you are just like, you wasted your time, your money, your resources and energy, and you're back to square one and nothing solved. So before you try anything, make sure that you really sit down and understand. If you have a problem, sit down and understand, wait. What's the problem? What am I working with here? Give it enough time. Like, don't rush into like, oh, my problem is this, I need to do this. I'm like, wait. This happens, for example, me as a life coach, I get clients, oftentimes clients come to me and say like, I need help with this. And I'm like, okay, like, what is the problem? Like, let's just like get some context. Like, let's zoom out a little bit. Let me understand who you are, what's your context, what do you want, what do you struggle, what doesn't work, like where do you think is the issue, and then we can, let's round our understanding, and then we can agree what's the problem. But don't come to me as in like, oh, I know my problem, help me with this. I'm like, wait. We all have blind spots. And if you start that way, you instantly erase any chance for you to solve the problem because you're not even working on the right problem. I'm pursuing something that I don't understand. I should just like take a step back, become wise by looking at the whole thing, looking at the whole person, looking at the whole experience, absorb as much as I can, not just about their advice about money, but how they are in their personal life. Are they happy? How is that going? Do I want that for me? People said them like, I want this amount of money, I will follow this person. And I'm saying like, yeah, but do you still want to be happy? Well, then watch also in the personal life and see if you want that. And if you don't, like, you know, like nobody wants to struggle with the issues that Alex is struggling. And my God, he's a good man. But at the same time, we all have things to learn from each other, right? Well, in your case, you have to really pay attention to everything, not to just only what you're like, you have like a dangling like money carrot in front of you, you're just like following that, but like, oh my God, I need to follow the money. It was like, oh, hey, you have time, but please design well, because otherwise you're going to regret it later. So lesson 18, which is 17, here goes. If you are determined to be rich one day, make sure that isn't the same day when you stop growing, challenging yourself and enjoying your life. Because that is going to be exactly the day when you go back to being poor.